Hello, I'm your superhero critic, and I'll stay super as long as you stay awesome. Batman the Animated Series. What can I say about it that hasn't already been said? It is one of the best cartoons of all time, and to be honest, without it, I don't think I would enjoy cartoons as much as I do. That being said, to celebrate BATMAY a little bit more, we're going to count down my personal top 10 favorite episodes of this show. That being said, this is my top 10, not the top 10. So your opinions, while valid, may not coincide with mine, and that's okay. That being said, let's dive straight into it. The dynamic duo head into the amusement park maze in order to find that boss before it's too late. With the concept of a video game designer being outraged enough to fill the city with riddles, for some reason I loved this episode a little more than I think I should. Number 10. If you're so smart, why aren't you rich? This episode is the episode that introduced me into the mind of the Riddler and what the character would bring. The episode begins with Edward Nygma being fired and screwed over by a gaming company, and 2 years later, while his boss is trying to sell Dwayne, he begins mentally torturing him. This gets Batman involved while him and Robin are tackling his henchmen and almost burn down the building, but Riddler still gets away. The rest of the episode is filled with plenty of riddles that make you think. Number 9. Make 'em laugh. I love the concept of this episode from the first time I've seen it to now. It begins with a man calling himself the Condiment King, but Batman quickly takes him down with no problems and ends up being a big-named comedian. Meanwhile, Alfred is shopping and meets someone named the Pack Rat, who also ends up being an ex-comedian. It then turns out that all of these comedians are hosting a laugh-off competition, and the year before's contest had a disgruntled competitor who ends up being the Joker, who has really been using stolen Mad Hatter technology. Eventually he gets to the competition, and of course by the end of the day, Batman wins. I love this episode simply because the comedic timing is spot on while doing its best to stay serious, and some of the episode is just hilarious, but you'd have to see it to believe it. Number 8. Perchance To Dream. This episode loves to make you think, and it's all about Bruce waking up in an alternate universe where not only are his parents alive, but he's an even more successful person and even married to Selina Kyle. But the biggest turn is that he's not the Batman and someone else is. Bruce, of course, knows something's wrong as he has a breakdown and slowly learns that he can't read due to the psychology behind our dreams and the brain. Bruce eventually tracks the Bat at the asylum, and after a quick tussle, he finally wakes up, revealing the entire episode has been Mad Hatter mind-controlling him after the opening sequence. I loved this episode mainly due to the psychological aspect and the entire what-if factor of the premise. Number 7. The Strange Secret of Bruce Wayne. Have you ever imagined what people would do with your personal dreams and secrets? Well, in this episode, Bruce Wayne learns the hard way when he saves Judge Vargas's life from some goons who have a tape she's willing to risk her life for. Bruce then has a meeting with Dr. Hugo Strange, and he finds out that his machine can show strange people's secrets. He has been using it to blackmail people. Once Bruce's identity is learned by Strange, he invites 3 of Batman's biggest villains to bid on the tape. The rest of the episode follows Bruce as he does what he can in order to keep everything a secret. The episode is very good and has a lot of one-liners and is overall of a thrill to watch. Matt Freemer leads this episode as Sid the Squid, a bumbling wannabe criminal who's on the run and goes to Rupert Thorne for help because we find out that Sid has apparently been Batman's murderer. As we find out from his story, it was a complete total accident, but he eventually becomes the talk of the town, putting a name on himself as well as attracting the Joker. By the end of the episode, however, we learn that of course Batman is still alive and has been tailing Sid throughout the city to find out who is in charge of the drugs. This episode is great as it has some of the best one-liners from the Joker as well as just the concept of the episode as a whole is pretty ludicrous. Number 5. Trial. This episode is unique where it focuses more on the concept of the trial of Batman more than any of the actual typical fighting. The episode focuses around the new DA being obsessed with bringing Batman down by bringing up the fact that he is responsible for most of the criminals in Gotham. The DA is then kidnapped by the Rogues Gallery and forced into being Batman's defense attorney. Throughout the case, she learns that her thoughts on Batman are wrong and that the villains would exist with or without Batman's existence. With Joker as the judge and the Rogues Gallery as the juror, this trial showcases each of the villains' problems and shows why Gotham actually needs the Dark Knight after all. Number 4. Baby Doll. This episode is majorly screwed up and has a dark message behind it, but we start with a child kidnapping someone as we then find out that the cast of the show called Baby Doll have also been kidnapped, and we find out that it's the actress from the show who has a body condition where she doesn't age. It turns out that Miss Doll is obsessed with getting her old life back the way it was when the show was on the air and is forcing the others to stay in their roles. Eventually, Robin poses as a character known as Spunky, allowing the dynamic duo to thwart her plans, and the episode ends on a very emotional realization of body dysphoria. So for any of those who have ever had body image issues, this episode tackles that subject really well by the end of it and makes you wonder what child actors actually go through mentally. Number 3. Legends of the Dark Knight. This episode is great on many different levels and centers around 3 kids talking about the Batman and begin discussing what he's really like. They begin telling stories about what they think, with one of them whose uncle is a security guard for a music museum who watches the Joker break in and take over, only to be saved by Batman and Robin. This part of the episode is drawn like the old 50s and 60s cartoons, with all the campiness to go with it, and anyone who knows me knows that I love all that campy type of Batman. The next story is a retelling sort of Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns and showcases the dark side of Batman, focusing on the gang fight from Miller's story. However, while all of this is going on, the kids stumble upon the town's arsonist, Firefly, who has hidden out in the movie theater, and through their help, Batman eventually takes him down. I love this episode because it showcases the different incarnations we have of Batman, and overall, it's just a great episode. Number 2. Beware the Creeper. I cannot state how hilarious this episode is from start to finish. The episode cracks joke after joke, and Jack Ryder is a reporter talking about the anniversary of the Joker's creation. The Joker himself joins the broadcast and decides to toss Jack into the acid. After a tussle with Batman and Robin, the Joker gets away and Jack wakes up with increased powers and increased sanity. He then begins a hunt for the Joker and eventually tracks down Harley, immediately falling for her and doing everything he can to woo her. This episode is one of my favorites, and they really captured the character of the Creeper, but you have to see why I loved the episode for yourself. And episode number 1, I believe, deserves its own personal episode and review. So that being said, join me next week in BATMAY, where we decide to dive into my favorite episode and full-length review. That being said, I'm your superhero critic, and I'll stay super as long as you stay awesome.